Hey, hello again. I'm out at Tollgate Park in North Bend. I'm out here to paint Mount Si again. We've got a lot of rainy, windy weather coming up, so I wanted to get out while there's still just a little bit of fall color left and before the rain sets in. Just as a timestamp, it's about mid-November, so we're at the tail end of fall, moving into winter. It's been cold here, so I'm glad I'm in the sun. I'm going to set up and do an all painting. I like this view, I like this little building. That's some kind of little business, and I love the sunlit faces of the Rocky Mountain, the shadow pattern. I'll give you a rundown on my palette. I'll start with Artist Turpentine for the initial sketch and the initial wash. There's a nice breeze, it's a bit windy, so I'm not worried about the turpentine fumes. Once I get the wash done, I'll put this away and get the Gamsol out. I've got a little bit of Neo McGilp in here. I'll add a little bit of that to the colors that I mix if I need to correct the viscosity. I like the paint to be about like room temperature butter, and since today is kind of cold, I may have to add a little bit more of that to get it to flow nicely. But I find if I get it to about the consistency of room temperature butter, so softer than it normally comes out of the tube, it'll stick to my side palette here without dripping down, and it'll also go down on the oil primed linen that I use, especially after that turpentine wash. One reason I love the turpentine wash is it makes a surface that really grabs the paint off the brush and makes the paint stick to the panel without sliding around too much. Got Ivory Black and Coal Gray. I use these just to correct the value and maybe to dull colors. I don't really paint directly with those colors. I don't really paint directly with any of these colors. Very rarely would I put maybe just a fine line of red or one of these higher value colors down just to add a little interest somewhere, or to show a man-made object that has some kind of synthetic paint like that. But mostly in nature you're going to have mixtures of grays. Titanium white, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, cad red, cad yellow, gambling radiant lemon, and yellow ochre. I'm going with a Centurion oil primed linen panel today. Nice, inexpensive but sturdy, high quality linen. I like the oil prime surface. It makes that turpentine wash a lot of fun. I'll start with a small ivory, a synthetic brush from Rosemary. It's kind of worn in, so it has even though it's a flat, it's worn to a point. That works nice for the sketch. After the sketch is done, I'll move to the turpentine wash. Now with the sketch, all I want to do is place the horizon line, my eye level line, the big shapes. I'll place that building, a couple of the major trees, and the shadow pattern on the mountain, and also the silhouette of the mountain. I'll decide whether I want to include any of the background mountains or just keep that. I can lay something in quickly with the sketch, almost like I'm doing a notan on a piece of paper, and then develop it further with the turpentine wash. I can continue to develop that simple value pattern until I see something that I like that has big abstract shapes, a nice pattern without a lot of similar shapes or without any repeating objects. Something with a lot of variety and something that's recognizable as the scene in front of me. Alright, there's the rough sketch in. You can see I just roughly laid in the big shapes and the ravines, trying to capture that shadow pattern I'm seeing up there. Now I'll go in with a big brush and do the turpentine wash. And here I'm just trying to suggest the main color harmony. So I want to use the same colors basically that I used for the sketch. Ultramarine blue, burnt umber, alizarin crimson, tiny bit of cad yellow and yellow ochre. Then once I get that turpentine wash in, I'll take a sharper Evergreen, a little stiffer synthetic, and with a little bit of turpentine in the brush, I'll wipe away some of the lighter lights, like the building and the faces of the mountain that are catching the sun. Now I want to move pretty quickly because I like the shadow pattern right now, and I know that with the sun moving behind me, I'm going to lose some of that shadow pattern. There's the turpentine wash in, and I went ahead and added a little bit more color to darken up the shadows a bit, capture some of the warm and cool color shifts in the shadows, and I also took and wiped away some of the lighter lights. As I paint the sky, I'll get rid of that strong line and make it more of a gradient. I'll also correct the shape, the silhouette of the mountain as I paint the full colors. So now I'll just start to mix up my colors. I'll try to use as few colors as I can to create the mixtures. Ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, yellow ochre. Those will be my 3 primaries. I'll try to just use those and create the colors I need from those 3 main colors, adding white or gray where I need to, adding other colors from my palette where I need to. I find if I choose 3 primaries to mix, to create most of my mixtures, and then just add a little bit of other color only where necessary, like a little bit of cad red in some of the rock where it's really glowing warmly, it creates a nice color harmony a little easier. Here's the colors I mixed up. I tried to minimize the number of pools of color, but couldn't help myself. I had to mix up a few extras. So I've got 2 for the sky, 1 little richer purple for the top of the sky, a little lighter, more yellow for the bottom of the sky down near the horizon. Here's the shadow on the mountain. Pretty dark. That looks pretty dark compared to the sky, so I may need to add a little bit of the sky color into that as I paint, shift things around a bit. I've got shadow of the pines on the mountain, light on the pines on the mountain, and then these are the rock colors where they're getting hit by the sun. Kind of a yellow, a red, and the lavender. There's not a lot of this red. I don't want to overuse that. Using that red is going to pull things forward. So I want to use these more cooler, grayer, especially this lavender, and maybe just some straight white as well. Foreground, or the middle ground pines near the house. I didn't really mix up colors for the house. I'll just use some of these sky colors and some of the foreground grass colors to hint at that building. Then I've got these deciduous tree colors, a little more orange, a little more yellow. Start with this big evergreen. It's a number 7 Rosemary Evergreen synthetic brush for the sky. And work from the horizon up. So I'm going to add just a little bit of white first, and then dip into this lighter color. Touch this yellow as well, just to add a little warm note. Alright, so I'll use the biggest brush I can to get the job done. Just move as quickly as I can so the light doesn't change too quickly. So the light doesn't change and change the feeling of the scene. I'll switch to a little smaller. This is an Evergreen filbert, and I'll paint the shadows on the mountain. I'm just going to try this little bluer dark shadow and see how it looks against the sky. Doesn't look too bad. Maybe a little dark. I'll have to step back when I get more of it in. I want to add just a little bit of this deeper sky blue. Lighten it just slightly. Especially as it goes down, you get more fog and mist down closer to the ground, so it lightens. I want to keep these shadow shapes big and not a whole lot of detail or texture, and I'm carving out the fall color tree in the foreground by painting the shadow around it. Kind of following the shadow pattern I put in earlier, and kind of following also what I'm seeing, if I like a shape I'm seeing there better now. Alright, there's the shadow on the mountain end. Stepping back, it looks okay. Maybe a little dark, but maybe once I get the other colors in, it'll match the scene just a little better. So I'll take a little smaller evergreen and paint in the rock and the trees on the mountain. This is a number 3 evergreen long flat. Painting the rock faces of Mount Si, I try to just use the colors I pre-mixed, but I do dip into other pre-mixed colors and some tube colors as needed to just slightly bend the color. I step back often to take in the painting from a distance. That helps to catch errors and to also confirm that the composition is reading. I try to get into a flow state where I am letting the painting paint itself. It's such a joy when I can let my mind focus on the big picture, what I want the painting to say, like majestic, hard, ancient in the case of Mount Si. While my ability, developed over many paintings, unconsciously takes care of the paint stroke direction, pressure, amount of paint, etc. I don't always get into a flow state, especially if I'm having trouble with the light, wind, or bugs, or gear. But I love it when it happens. It's almost like I come out of meditation to see how much of the painting has been accomplished. Oh, thank you. Painting the distant foothill trees, I try to think about them almost like moss on the rock climbing up the slopes. This helps me to not worry about trying to paint anything like individual trees. It's more about the sun hitting the slope and what's on the slope. Lighter and warmer in the faces in the light, cooler and darker on the shady side. Painting the middle ground trees, I can start to think about individual trees, but I'm still trying to view them as clumps of color with soft edges and some gaps. I don't try to paint individual branches or leaves. That would be impossible and unnecessary at this distance. Here I'm using a Rosemary Ultimate Bristle with a little bit of Gamsol added to help it flow. I'm thinking maybe the bristle will give me some nice texture and bring these deciduous trees in the middle ground forward. Painting the buildings with the shadow pattern I observed earlier, when the light was on the right side, when the left side of the building was all in shadow. Here's where it ended up. 11 by 14 inch oil on linen panel. That was fun. I need to take a look at it again later. My eyes are a little tired from the exercise. This mountain face may be a little too bright. It's jumping forward too much, maybe too bright and too warm. So I may need to glaze the whole thing with a light blue, more like a scumble, this whole background to push it back and make the foreground pop. And then I need to do a little more defining, or maybe just cut out. I can cut this panel off if that makes a better composition. It might, to cut out some of this empty grass. I don't know, I need to take a look at it again. But it was a beautiful day, met some nice folks, got some great reference. I now know how the shadow travels across the mountain in this spot. It's a wonderful spot for plein air. The shadow stayed pretty consistent. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you have any questions. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.